So, yeah, no, I don't usually have formal intros or anything. People know exactly who I am, but
your name precedes itself.
Yeah, pretty much. But in this case, I mean, you're free to introduce yourself.
Thanks. My name is Christopher Hansford. I am the Political Engagement Director for the first ever gaming citizen gamer-focused advocacy group, Consumers for Digital Fairness. We are an all-volunteer team based out of Washington, D.C., and we are focused on consumer protection issues for the gaming community, mostly around loot boxes and other exploitative practices.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's definitely a hot topic right now.
Really?
I wish it wasn't.
I know, I'm in the exact same boat. I wish we didn't have to do what we do, but I'm happy to be here, and I want to thank you for inviting me on your podcast.
Yeah, man, no worries. No, I saw that you retweeted one of my things a while back, basically like how I guess we got in contact, and it was like, oh, digital fairness, what is that? And it was like a new Twitter account, so the followers were relatively low, but the whole setup seemed like weirdly professional to where it was like, okay, this clearly isn't just like some, person still in high school.
Yeah, thank you. I will go with the moniker weirdly professional for the rest of my days if I can.
Yeah, it was.
But we've just launched a Twitter account recently. And yeah, I think you had some sort of very fierce burn slagging off a loot box situation, and I focused right in on that. I'm like, this guys know what's going on.
Yeah, there was the EA, because EA, obviously EA is currently one of the big offenders, not the primary, not the only offender, but EA had been slowly building up my trust for a while because, I don't know if you kind of remember Mass Effect 3, Battlefield 4, kind of like those couple dark years for EA.
Oh, yeah.
The EA had been building up my trust over the next couple of years with like the way that they fixed Battlefield 4 despite not really needing to, and the kind of stability of a lot of their games. And then it was like Battlefront 2, bam, all the trust they had been building up was gone. So I was let off the chain. It was the memes were coming out left and right.
I genuinely think Star Wars Battlefront 2 is going to go down in business history as one of an actual case study in how not to release a product, how not to interact with your customer base. So it's going to be it's a disaster from a PR standpoint. It's a disaster from a marketing standpoint. It's a disaster from a game design standpoint, in my opinion. But yeah, I think that is the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people, and that it's going to be a topic and an incident that folks are going to be talking about for a long time to come.
Yeah, it's really just bizarre. Battlefront 2's loot box system, while being aggressive, the sad thing is it's nothing new. I've seen a lot of shooters using almost the same system now for a couple of years, and I guess it's nice that EA is loud and obnoxious enough to where theirs was the one that, really caught on.
Yeah, they've really done, in my opinion, both our team and the gaming community a great service by letting us know exactly what they want. And exactly where they want to take this particular practice. And they were very blunt and clear and forthcoming with that, so I appreciate their honesty. Yeah. I strongly dislike their practices, but I appreciate the fact that they were pretty blunt and honest with everyone. So it very much helped to activate the community.
I also it brought us all together ultimately. Yeah. That was the goal of Battlefront 2, and it succeeded.
That was the thing that actually, to be honest, really got our team put together. So right now,
I was going to ask you about digital fairness. Was there ever what was the breaking point that was like, fuck this, we need to do this thing?
That really was Star Wars Battlefront 2 for pretty much all of us, where not all of us are Star Wars folks. Okay. I'd been a fan. I had purchased Battlefront 1 probably 2 months prior to Battlefront 2's release, because I had just abstained, and then it was like $5.99 for literally everything. All the expansions, things that folks had spent $120 for, I got it for $6. and I was pretty satisfied at that price for that product, so that was great. But yeah, I was pretty stoked for Battlefront 2. I was excited. They have a single player. They've listened to consumer feedback. This is wonderful. And then you had folks getting early reviews. You had folks like Jim Sterling. You had folks, I think Total Biscuit was in there, Sid Alpha, some really great commentators. And I mean, it was a disaster. You saw everything that happened. It blew up, and really all of us, we know each other on a personal level. We've enjoyed games, both tabletop and video games with each other for a good long while. And we all kind of looked at each other and we said, all right, that's it. Time to put the controller down and time to do something. This is literally ridiculous.
Yeah, that was actually, I don't know, it's definitely sad that, you know, money was at stake for a lot of people in this situation, but it's kind of fun just like seeing these shitty shitheads like just shooting themselves in the foot over and over again.
I mean, I do deeply appreciate. I won't call it fun. I feel really bad, honestly, for everybody that is being manipulated and, in my opinion, abused by these loot boxes. But it's very nice when you're looking at a political or a policy issue to have bad actors just really be out there. They are just brutally honest with what they are doing. They're not trying to hide it. They're not trying to couch it. They're not trying to dissuade the public. Or mask their practices. Nope, it's some cash, it's a random chance, and it's an item of various value. Enjoy. So it's made our job easy.
I mean fun in that the ensuing chaos that came out of it and just seeing these shitheads like struggling to damage control. And almost everything they do works against them and makes the problem worse. Like I think of Destiny 2 and Bungie.
Ooh, yeah.
And man, that was like every week it was a new story. It was like, Bungie, shut the fuck up. Like, what are you doing?
Honestly, if their PR, in my opinion, if their PR department had just shut down for 2 weeks, it probably would have been better for them. Just don't talk to anybody. Just shut down the loot boxes overnight. Don't say a word about it and try to have everyone forget. And that probably would have worked better.
Yeah, there were a couple of analysts. I forgot what type of analysts they were. I think something to do with marketing and stuff. But they were speculating. I was reading some kind of thread, and they were speculating that was EA's plan. But because it's Star Wars, it kind of jumped ship from the gaming community and started to become a real issue with a lot of people because that's something they recognize. And it got to the point where EA couldn't stay silent. Like things were getting out of control.
Yeah, they definitely, in my opinion, shot themselves in the foot with a premier flagship, well-known product. If this was, say, the next game in the Witcher series, if this was even Mass Effect Andromeda, Battlefield, even Call of Duty, I genuinely think that this would not have gotten the attention of media outlets, leaders at the state and federal level, because folks get Star Wars. Folks have, myself included, to a degree, an emotional attachment with that franchise for one reason or another. Everybody basically knows Star Wars. Unless you were born in a cave, you've heard of it. You probably think it's pretty swell, at minimum. And yeah, if this was any other product doing this, I don't think it would have escalated that fast and to such a degree. But I'm grateful that that's what they decided to do. It made our advocacy mission so much easier.
Yeah, so with digital fairness and stuff, I guess what kind of power do you guys have or that you guys are working towards?
So right now our goal is to educate state and federal leaders on, first of all, what is a loot box. You have a lot of leaders at those levels that can do something. They're not familiar with video games, video game culture. And when you describe a loot box to them, they kind of will shake their head some of the times. So it's primarily an education issue. But when you can lay out for folks, and that's what we try to do, basically education and then policy advocacy. We have a piece of model legislation that we're passing around and saying, hey, listen, folks in Indiana, folks in Washington State, Hawaii are already stepping up to the plate on these things. This is what we would like you to do if you feel that this is a consumer protection issue like we do. It's the education, it's the call to action, and folks are responding pretty well once they start to understand, wait a minute, this is this is going on in my living room? Because this looks shockingly similar to a video slot machine, perhaps in some people's opinion identical, and that's going on in my living room? Really? I didn't know that. And you lay out for them the kind of revenues that are being generated. You lay out some of the victim impact statements that we've been collecting. And folks on all sides of the aisle of all political stripes, which is the other wonderful thing about our work, are called to this issue. This isn't a partisan issue. It's an issue that folks of every color and every stripe politically can get behind and say, you know what? I don't think that's right. Let's do something about it to fix it.
Yeah, they the problem with like video games specifically when it comes to some of this like RNG shit is video games at the end of the day, it is all manipulation. You know, since it began, it's all about a mess of visuals and sounds and colors to make you feel good and stuff. And obviously that's how they get us to part with our money, you know, and it's always been that way, and it's okay because it's a form of entertainment, and it's like we pay money and then, hey, we have this thing forever that we can play to feel good about ourselves.
Exactly.
With.
You have a product, you've engaged in a fair market transaction. Here's my money, give me the product, end of discussion, thanks very much.
Yeah, the issue comes into when money is involved in reoccurring spending, and then the game begins to kind of twist a lot of its gameplay loops and even visual loops to the point where, you know, like the grind and stuff that comes from games filled with loot boxes, it's manipulative in that it's punishing you with a really long extended period of boring gameplay because you're not spending money.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that on an opinion level. We've talked to some folks in the industry in various companies that have reached out, and also usually anonymously. And a lot of folks that we've talked to have said, you know what, the people on the ground level of this, the people that are doing the programming, are designing the visuals, they're not the ones that are out to strip you of your money. They are genuinely looking to provide an entertaining experience. And a lot of them do believe that they're providing an entertaining product. And
the guy cleaning up some texture work, he's not thinking about how much money his loot box scheme's going to make.
Exactly. He or she is looking to provide something that's enjoyable to the player.
They want to make the metal shine as realistically as possible on the tank or whatever.
Exactly.
They're not thinking about loot
we
boxes.
Sympathize with those folks as well. And to kind of clarify what our position is on loot boxes, because some folks, there's a lot of different opinions and thoughts out there. We inherently are not against, we don't want the banning of cash loot boxes. If a company wants to engage in cash loot boxes, which in our description is where you pay real dollars, euros, or whatever real currency, for a random chance at items of various value, so you don't have a guaranteed outcome and you receive a prize. We welcome companies that engage in that practice, but it should be properly regulated because it, in our opinion, is gambling. And you have casinos that practice with slot machines all the time. They are well regulated. They are open only to adults. And they are a standalone industry that I think engages in a lot of proper self-regulation. But it should be regulated as that. It should not be coming into our living rooms unabated because it inherently, in our opinion, is gambling. So what's the difference between a slot machine and a cash loot box? I continue to struggle to find that difference myself. So if that's what you want to do, great. Mm-hmm. Just understand that you should be following the exact same regulation that a casino is under. And if your state outlaws that, then I'm sorry, you shouldn't practice that in a given state.
Yeah, something also that kind of concerns me that not a lot of people are talking about, which not that it means that they aren't talking about it, you know, maybe I just don't notice, but also I've noticed lately a tiny thing, I don't know if it's a trend or it's just a bunch of different publishers have kind of caught on to the growing shitstorm against loot boxes, and now basically casino chips are on the rise, where it's okay, you're not technically paying for a loot box, you're paying for COD points or whatever that you can then happen to exchange for, you know, a ton of loot boxes and stuff. And Assassin's Creed Origins famously was able to slip in under the radar having loot boxes because it had a marketplace with like money that you could spend there and stuff, but the money you had to buy with, you know, real money.
Exactly, and that's a practice looking at the illegal gaming, and when I say gaming in this instance, I mean gambling industry. that is a practice that we have seen people partake before. So when certain states like Florida, for example, were having problems with illegal casinos cropping up in storefronts, they were looking at them and the stores were saying, well, we're not a casino. We are selling people points, and they can redeem those points for these prizes we have, and the games they play with the points can get you more points, and the game, when they say games, they're literally casino games. They weren't anything
slot
special.
Machines and stuff.
Exactly. So calling that we'd call it a pass-through or an intermediate currency, that's not a real legal defense in our opinion. So what we're advocating for is we're asking for each state's either attorney general or specifically if they have a regulatory agency focused on gaming to look at these practices and make a professional determination if these are in fact gambling. And we believe they are, and we believe that these law enforcement and regulatory agencies, which are filled with very competent people that spend their days focused on these issues, will find, as we found, that they are gambling and don't belong in our living rooms. And there's a lot of companies out there that are already what we would consider best practices, that are already doing digitally fair things, and they're making a great deal of money, and people enjoy their products. And I just don't understand why certain publishers have to try to manipulate folks to pay them when they can just look at their competition and make a better product and sell it to people and have a fantastic business or transaction.
Yeah, it's ultimately the kind of issue with like loot boxes and stuff like that is, I mean, outside of a lot of the morally gray stuff in that, you are putting loot boxes, like slot machines in a game aimed at ages 10 and up and stuff, like that's very shitty and you should feel shitty. But,
I don't disagree with you at all, but also at the end of the day, it's not even just an age issue. Like we don't think that a cash loot box belongs in an unregulated M game. Yeah. It doesn't matter who's it for. I think it's especially questionable when it's in a game. One of the things that I personally find the most objectionable is Overwatch, a game that is specifically targeted, from my understanding, at a younger demographic. Folks, I think it's 12 to 20 is the primary demographic for that product. That's the most concerning, but it's also on anything else. Cash in, random chance, prize out, gambling. Doesn't really matter.
What I was kind of saying was that it obviously the loot box thing, like the casino stuff, like that's all its own issue, but it's also sort of that in this way, the publisher or developer, whoever's in charge of it, they've kind of created this foolproof system where they can put as little effort into delivering content to the player, because essentially what they have is an infinite money pool to reach into now, because they have this slot machine set up that's attracting all the whales and stuff, as opposed to you see other developers and publishers that release, like actually I can use as an example the Halo franchise, which I'm very, very familiar with. Halo 4 in 2012, post its release, it began releasing basically these sets of armors that you could wear in the online field, and there was nothing RNG about it. It was just straight up, hey, here's a ton of armors from previous Halo games. This whole package is $10, and it gives you 8 armors. Here you go. And then it's like, boom, I exchanged money for something that they created for me. And then the very next game, Halo 5, it didn't do any of that. All of it now is a slot machine. The game, in fact, actually threw out its progression system in favor of a slot machine. The only way to unlock anything is by opening a loot box.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I picked up Halo 5 myself, I don't actually even think I made it all the way through the campaign, and I probably put in maybe less than 6 hours into the multiplayer, because it's just not a rewarding system.
No.
And we would call a digitally fair practice is where you are offered a product for a set price. You buy exactly what you want. You get what you want for the price that you've agreed upon with the game seller, and that is the end of your transaction. And none of us are game designers, so I will not try to tell a publisher or a game design team what is good design. If you want to design a game where you will sell overpowered weapons, overpowered armor, better vehicles, basically pay to win, if that's the game you choose to design, I inherently don't have a problem with that from a regulatory perspective. I probably won't purchase your game To be honest, that's not the kind of game I'm interested in playing. But if you want to do that, that's fine. I don't think there should be anything regulatory or illegal about that. Or if you just want to sell cosmetic items, great. I will probably spend $5 to make my character look exactly the way I want them to look. Wonderful. But yeah, we definitely
usually the public damns those games to low player populations anyways.
Oh yeah, I think the consumer base, which a lot of folks underestimate the intelligence of the gaming citizen consumer base, and the ability for them to get involved.
Publishers that.
Yeah, I think everybody stood up, and that was the thing that really galvanized us, which watching everybody stand up, and with almost a completely unified voice said, "Really? 40 hours to unlock Darth Vader? Really? No." And I think their sales numbers reflect that. I think their initial player counts reflect that. And I'm very proud of our community for getting that done.
The Battlefront 2 thing with the 40 hours to unlock Darth Vader thing, something that actually does kind of frustrate me a little bit with, the 40 hours, the argument that, like, what the hell, 40 hours to unlock Darth Vader, is more so not that you have to play the game for 40 hours to unlock Darth Vader, but that this is a punishment for you.
Exactly.
That's the issue, is that 40 hours can be circumvented if you give us money. If not, like, get to fucking work.
And you know what? If a game, if Battlefront 2 chose to just say, you need however many, I think they're called star points. I don't know because I did not purchase Battlefront 2.
I think they call them scraps or something like that.
Scraps, okay.
I don't fucking know.
That's right. There's star cards, and then there are
casino tokens.
There's jewels of some variety. But basically, if they just said it's 40 hours, get to working, I'd be like, okay. Again, still probably not going to buy your game, but there's nothing, in my opinion, immoral about that. But once you start offering folks the random chance to pay their way around that system, that's when we start to have a pretty substantial issue. And if they even said, you know what, we're going to sell you Darth Vader for whatever price they chose, I'd even, from a legal and regulatory standpoint, be okay with that. Again, I probably wouldn't buy the game. That's not what I want to play. But, and I on a personal level, think it's pretty shitty. But yeah, it's that they're going all the way past selling you something. They're going all the way past just having a straight, fair transaction. It's, hey, this could cost you $5. This could cost you $80. It could cost you, I think somebody actually did the math on how much it would cost to unlock literally everything in Battlefront 2. And it was definitely in the several hundred to nearly $1,000 range. It was absurd.
In fact, Destiny 2, someone did that as well, and it was close to $2,000.
Oh my god.
If your odds are every time you open a loot box, you get a brand new item. That's not even accounting for duplicates.
Really?
So with duplicates in mind, it's going to be even higher.
That is what I would call digitally unfair. That is not okay.
And, like, obviously, an argument is just don't play these games and stuff. Just have self-control. Like, and I'm sure that, like, crusty booby, that was like a Freudian slip. Baby boomer politicians, like, baby boomer era politicians who don't, they think video games cause violence or whatever. Like, they'll say they have to exercise self-control and don't, but like the human brain is very easy to manipulate. We're very, very cyclical creatures, and these video game publishers and stuff, they employ psychologists in some game studios to come up with ways to trap people in behavioral patterns. And stuff. So in some cases, the person doesn't know that they're in this compulsion loop and they can't get out.
There's definitely, from folks that we've talked to in the industry, a lot of them either from game design. We've talked to a couple of folks in game design, a couple of folks in visual media work, so kind of on the art side. They all used a level of psychology terminology that impressed us, which at the same time was also then becoming a little concerning. But the other thing I just want to quickly loop back, when you're talking about older politicians and older civic leaders, we're actually finding, so there is obviously an educational gap with those folks and getting them to understand, okay, let's lay out why these games are important to people, why they're engaged with them, why you can't just say, well, stop doing that. But once you kind of lay out the facts and the honest numbers of what these games are bringing in, they stop laughing and they stop deriding younger people. And when I can lay out for them that just EA last year, I believe they made, just off of microtransactions and loot boxes, $4 billion. That's billion with a B. And that's more than the Bellagio Casino, MGM, and there was another one, I think the Venetian in Las Vegas made. So one game company made that money, not off their games, but off of the microtransactions and loot boxes in them. I have yet to encounter a political leader of any real political stripe that has gone, yeah, that seems fine. I'm okay with that. Those darn kids. Nobody is saying that, and that's the very refreshing and exciting thing, and why we're pleased with the way things are going so far.
The concern about the upcoming, possibility of regulation and government intervention, what's kind of concerning, obviously, first instinct is, oh my God, yes, the government's going to save us from these shitty publishers. But the problem is that once the government starts getting involved in the video game industry and stuff, you start to get bleeding between the two different mediums and stuff, and then before you know it, you've actually got politicians and stuff that are being bought off by gaming giants, and then before you know it, they start, I kind of think, like, obviously not to get too political because people have their own different opinions and stuff. I think of kind of like this sadly the mass shooting recently, and not to have a statement about gun control and stuff, but it doesn't take a genius to know why Trump is skirting around the NRA, given that they gave him close to $300,000 during his political campaign. And we can start seeing stuff like that, but with the video game industry, where politicians are acting and signing off bills in the gaming industry's best favors so they can get away with more shit.
Well, here's the thing. So if you go back and look, the gaming industry has not been politically silent for the last 20 years. They had a very brilliant strategy when, back in the 90s, for those that look back, a lot of folks were up on Capitol Hill at the federal level saying, oh, violent games cause violent kids. This is when people like Hillary Clinton were throwing around the term like super predator. And I believe Newt Gingrich was out there saying, I'm trying to remember if it was Resident Evil or there was some other very specific title that he had zeroed in on and other folks zeroed in on, saying, or it was like Tekken or something like that, that this caused mass shooters, this stuff caused violence in children, this stuff caused kids to kill each other and not understand reality. So the industry reacted to that in a pretty smart way, and probably what I would also again call a best case study for other industries. They created their own regulatory agency, the ESRB. That's not a government agency. It is all paid for by games publishers, and that's where you get your current rating system from. And that was something they did on their own to stave off government regulation. And you can look online. There's a great website called Open Secrets, and it allows you to see what companies and their trade groups like the ESRB and other electronic entertainment trade groups have spent on lobbying over the course of the last decade. And I'll give you a hint, those numbers are not zero. They have been spending a good deal of money. I don't think they hold a candle to major advocacy groups like the NRA, but they've been spending a very good deal of money basically reminding politicians, hey, you know what? We're great people. Leave our industry completely alone. There's no need for regulation of any kind. Carry about your business. They kind of did the Obi-Wan Kenobi, there's nothing to see here, move along. And it's been working for the past 20 years. And now, so I want to loop back really quickly. I very much understand people's concern about getting the government involved in anything. I'm not somebody on a personal level that is ever super stoked when Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, whatever. I'm never super stoked when a politician tells me that they're going to solve my problem. But I think we have come up with model legislation that a lot of folks in Washington, Hawaii, Indiana are supporting that is very limited in scope. And when the government does a limited endeavor, I think you have a lot of chance for success without the concerns of censorship, which are concerns I take on a very personal level as well. I do not think games should be censored. I don't think we should be engaged in that kind of thing from a regulatory level. But all we're doing is asking either a state's attorney general or if the state has a gambling board to say, here's a loot box. Let us know, in your professional opinion, if it's gambling and if it should be regulated as gambling in your state. And those people, I don't think, can be bought because they're not really politicians. They're law enforcement officials or they're regulatory agencies. And I think if you can put it in their hands to make an up or down decision, they'll make an inherently fair one for consumers and for gamers.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair argument and stuff. I think it's more so the concern is that it will open the door.
Yeah, I can understand
a little
that.
bit, because I mean, with the whole loot box thing, the way it kind of like crept up out of nowhere.
No,
I mean, not that we didn't
respect those
see it
concerns.
was coming, but we didn't expect it to take over.
Yeah, we were a little surprised as well to see that, and we've been active in pushing it to stay in the public discussion, get more leaders to sign on to introduce bills that are what we'd call digitally fair. Just asking for this regulatory oversight. But I definitely understand the concern, and I respect that. And whenever we are working with civic leaders, that is very much in our mind. That we are not looking for censorship, and we're trying to come in with a very limited mission. And it's just, here's a problem, here's our recommended solution, let us solve this problem together and move on. And ideally, I would love to talk to you in a year, in 2 years, and say we're officially disbanding. That is the end of the campaign for digital fairness. We have gotten rid of cash loot boxes in unregulated games. Our mission is accomplished. We're going home. End of the story. Hopefully that is a discussion we can have, but for now, we definitely are focused on and understand people's concerns about government intervention and that kind of mission creep.
Recently, this is actually kind of an interesting thing to come up with. Okay, so like, kind of the regulation of cash loot boxes, and then obviously with that comes decreased revenue because parents and gamers will start to stay away, and that'll force publishers and developers, sadly, to come up with more insidious and manipulative tactics, because why make a product that we will happily pay money for when you can create a system and manipulate us into throwing money into that system. But basically, a little while ago, there was a leaked presentation by some outside.
It was a consulting group of some kind.
You know what I'm talking about, have you?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
If you want to explain it, you probably know a little bit more about it now than I do.
So it was an industry inside presentation. I've not actually fully seen anyone substantiate or authenticate the materials, but they're pretty expansive, and in my opinion, they're authentic for whatever that's worth.
It's too detailed.
It's too good to have some troll.
Too good.
Yeah, it's about 30 slides.
And if it is fake, other publishers will see it and say, hey, that's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah, if somebody took the time to fake all of this, they probably should just go and get that as a job.
Start pitching it anyway, because it's a great idea. That.
I don't think anything laid out in this presentation is fair and in a good practice for consumers. But basically, the practice was data mining consumers as a better way to sell them microtransactions and loot boxes. So everything from trying to understand what system you were on, which variety of, say, it was the Xbox. So which variety of Xbox One do you have? Oh, you have the upgraded, I think it's Xbox, is it the X? That's the premium version that runs VR.
The new one is called the X.
Yes, so it'll use data like that to say, oh, they have the X. They clearly have higher quantities of disposable income. We can market to them higher cost items. They're more likely to part with their money. Or they would use the microphone to listen to sounds in your environment, like is there a baby crying or an argument is perhaps going on. Maybe this isn't the best time to try to sell that game or something. Let's tone down our sales to try to make sure they're having a good time, and we'll dig in on them later. It was what I would consider some really creepy Big Brother level stuff.
Borderline dystopian.
Oh, I think we've crossed the borderline when you are attempting to observe my home, the interior of my home, to sell me something.
Well, there was even it detailed how it would be able to pick up on your environment and like little subtle things that you mention and stuff like that so well that it would be able to find you on social media, find your email, like basically stalk you even outside of the game and continue to gather information on you.
Oh, exactly. It's all automated. Now, just to be clear, I don't know of any publisher that is engaged in these practices, and thankfully we don't know of anyone that's looking to implement any of them, but they are all dystopian to the highest degree. That I am being hypothetically digitally stalked by a publisher to say, he's having a really great day, maybe we can try to upsell him on that microtransaction this afternoon when he gets home, or whatever.
Yeah, when he gets home, they will know what time you usually get home from work.
Exactly. And then we also saw patent filings out of, I think it was EA, again, I could be wrong, I'm open to being corrected here, where they were using, the patent is for a matchmaking system.
Activision as well. This is both
Activision,
EA and Activision.
Okay. For the matchmaking system where they would match you up against people who have premium kit, or what you'd call freemium kit. So they'll train wreck you. They'll probably call you a scrub, and then you'll see the fact in a post-battle replay. Oh, that guy had the upgraded rifle, or that guy killed me with the upgraded armor. Ooh, I better get that. And then it'll offer to sell you the exact item that just caused you to get your face rolled in.
Yeah. So Call of Duty. I don't know how much of the new Call of Duty game, World War II, you've played.
As little as physically possible, but I have played it.
I've played enough to make a video basically talking about some of the creepy psychological stuff that it's starting to do, and I won't be surprised if it's in the future. But Call of Duty now has implemented an entire button dedicated to looking and inspecting at your weapon, which we know why that's there, so that you can pick up the awesome loot box gun off the ground and drool over it. But then also the final kill of the game, they've replaced with a basically best play of the game and stuff.
Quote unquote, yeah. I think it's the MVP move or something like that.
And what it'll do is, and from what I understand, certain guns actually have a higher chance of landing you on that thing. So whenever I play Call of Duty World War II, the final end of the game is somebody with the shiniest loot box gun that they got, like doing these crazy kills and stuff.
I'm sure that's just accidental.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was purely coincidence.
Pure coincidence, for sure. Yeah.
I felt like I was being marketed to. Like, it was ridiculous.
You are. When folks are engaged in these practices, they are marketing to you. And here's the sad thing. We can look at other game companies that are making money hand over fist, and they're doing it in a way that's honestly, in my opinion, fair to the consumer. And love them or hate them, somebody that engages in what we'd call best practices is Wargaming. Their company, I think they're based in Belarus. They make World of Tanks, World of Warships, World of Warplanes, and they are very happy to just sell you ships, consumables, and other items in their premium shop. You want an upgraded battleship with higher penetration and better armor, they'll sell it to you for $40. That's it. There's no loot box, there's no nothing. They will just sell it to you. Their game is free. It may seem
expensive, but it's like, you're not manipulating me. I know what I'm buying.
You could argue hypothetically that you are being manipulated when people have access to better items, right? So you can have that argument, and that's an argument I guess we're not really looking to have because we're not game designers.
It's not the subject.
It's a game design choice.
Right conversation for right now.
Right. If you want to have a conversation about game design and what's good game design and what's bad, that's perfectly one thing. But I'd like to highlight for the folks out there that are listening and that are thinking of what they're putting in their game, we're not looking to cut off your stream of revenue. I understand that either your startup or your free-to-play game needs to find a way to pay itself. You are not in this just to make games. You need to support yourself. You need to support your family. You need to support your company. But there are honest and fair and justifiable practices to do that. Treat your audience with more respect. Sell them something that they want to buy. And if that's a premium consumable, if that is a better or just a different ship, product, helmet, whatever, people want to buy your things. If you've built a good game and put good content in it, they will spend money on it. I hate to admit it, but I do it myself a lot with any of the free-to-play games that I enjoy, or when there's a microtransaction for something I want. you know what? I'll probably pony up the cash if it's a good item, or if it's just cool, if it's a cool skin, and you're saying, yeah, we'll sell it to you for $2. Sure, it's like a pack of gum, and I get a cool skin.
Titanfall 2, I've bought quite a few weapon skins just because I appreciated the level of honesty from the developers. I mean, there's even a fact sheet in the help section on that game that is a straight up. Oh yeah, no. If you open up Titanfall 2, you can find it where it's. I think it's under store, and it's basically like, we are adding this, there will be no loot boxes, and and it's very honest. They're like, we need to make money post-launch to continue to support the development of these maps, as well as keeping the lights on.
Yeah, that's fine.
As well as other stuff. And what's actually funny is there's actually this it's a very honest, straightforward letter from the developer to the player.
You know, Titanfall 2, I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. That is a game that, everything they did right was exactly what Battlefront 2 did wrong on every level. People gave them feedback on Titanfall 1. They were like, hey, there's no single player. Hey, we're not super stoked on some of these things that you're doing. We think the game could be better with either just microtransactions or whatever. Yeah. And I think the publisher sat down and looked at the designers sat down, looked at all of that feedback and criticism, and went, cool, we're going to make a fantastically much better game. It's going to have single player. It's going to have better multiplayer. We're going to sell you cool cosmetic items. If you want to buy them, great. We're going to put a lot of work into it. And they made an awesome game that people like to play, and it's clearly making them money.
Titanfall 2, that's whole single player thing. I wasn't stoked because it was like, oh great, here comes the obligatory. It was good.
Yeah, they made a good campaign.
Way better than they needed to make it.
and that's the other thing. So when you look at, in my opinion, Battlefront 2's campaign, it's deeply mediocre. Yeah. It's a check the box. Here's a campaign because you guys said you wanted one, but we didn't put a lot of design and development time into it. Enjoy.
Yeah, no, it's one of the most bizarrely unpolished first-person shooter campaigns. I actually have a lot of footage on my computer of instances where I can visibly see the enemies spawning into the environment because I passed a certain checkpoint on the level. And it's just like, what the... you're not even trying to hide the spawning. Do you know care?
If it was a lower cost game, or it was a new publisher or an indie studio, I can't slag somebody off for that because I can't, I don't have the skills to make a game like that. But come on, EA, you're trying to charge me a premium price, and you're trying to extract money from me, and you couldn't even be bothered. You're making money hand over fist with digitally unfair practices, and you can't even deliver a good product. So again, they're doing the ad work that I need to do for myself for me. They're just making it clear that they don't want to put out a good product. They're letting everybody know that, at least in my opinion, they want to put out a mediocre product, and they want to get every last dollar from you that they can. So I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, Chris Lee, that Hawaiian senator, I believe he was.
Representative. He's in the Hawaii House of Reps. He's absolutely fantastic.
He is, man, there's that clip that you can find of him online where he's basically pressuring some of the lobbyists for the video game publishers about, their opinion on loot boxes and the whole gambling situation. And he was dropping some spicy memes.
Chris Lee, he's a younger representative. I think that's one of the other reasons. He's I think he's in his mid-30s.
He connects. Full of life.
He understands. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's very connected, very savvy.
He directly dropped a sense of pride and accomplishment line.
Yeah.
Ooh. You could see some of the other people in the room trying not to laugh because they got it. What he was doing.
There was a great, I think it was one of the very first interviews he did when the loot box issue started breaking out. And he was very clear. He laid down, I think, the spiciest of Star Wars memes, and just said simply, loot boxes in Star Wars Battlefront 2. It's a trap.
Yeah.
And it was published. I think it was ABC had the article, and the ABC folks didn't get it, but everybody else that reads it gets it. We know what's going on.
Yeah, they don't get it. They don't care. They're robots. They have very little understanding of human culture or anything.
They don't understand our ways. They just want our money.
Yeah, pretty much. with the whole digital fairness and stuff, like, obviously people can follow you on Twitter. I've advised, people, whenever I retweet some of your stuff, to send you guys stories.
Yeah.
And, like, how much does that help? Because obviously, the Twitter, it's slowly starting to build up and stuff, but even though it's small,
critical.
Even though you guys are small right now on Twitter, is it helping?
It's absolutely helping. So we're new to Twitter. We were largely working and continue to work through our website, digitalfairness.org, and through just our weekly emails and through our Patreon, letting folks know what we're up to. But when we're talking to civic leaders and we're letting them know about these stories that kids and adults have brought to us, I'll share one with you now.
Okay.
We don't use names for any of these really, or we'll just use a first name and where they're from. But we had a kid contact us about a month and a half ago, and he was like, "Listen, I know that you guys can't help me out of this jam that I'm in, but my parents co-signed on a credit card for me." I believe he was 16.
Okay.
And yeah, my parents co-signed on a credit card for me. I've been playing a certain game, and I have maxed out the $5,000 credit limit on my credit card, and I didn't know I was doing it, and I've realized it's a problem, and I've broken the disc for the game, but I need help. And so, unfortunately, we're not equipped to directly help people. We've been directing them to gambling addiction and recovery services, which is heartbreaking. On a real personal level, that is heartbreaking to talk to somebody that is having a gambling addiction problem because of a video game that we all love. That, to me, is morally wrong.
Yeah.
That I'm having this interaction. So we passed him along all of the resources that we could recommend, wished him the absolute best in how to explain to his folks what's going on, how to seek the help that he clearly needs. And we got, obviously, his permission to relate this story. And when we talk to civic leaders, when they say, "Oh, well, that doesn't sound like a real problem," I'll first talk to them about stories like this, and then also how much these companies are making off their digitally unfair practices. But when you tell somebody that, they can't really say, "Oh, that's just somebody with weak will." And I can list a dozen to 24 more, and I wish I couldn't. Like, I really wish I couldn't, but I do. And so we're also rolling out a white paper, which is a policy piece, in the next week or so, that lays out a lot of these stories. So people can start to really understand that this is a broad issue. It's impacting gaming citizens of all ages, all demographics, all backgrounds, all political stripes. And these are not weak-willed people. That's like saying that somebody that has another form of addiction is just a weak person. We know that's not the case. We know that it's a medical and clinical issue that needs respect and support and advocacy. And
the publishers are banking on these people.
Yeah, and
these systems
you mentioned
are focus
it earlier.
Group tested to target these specific people and exploit as much money as possible.
You used the term earlier, and it's a term that, like, literally every time it makes my skin crawl. A whale, somebody that has been identified, and it's an in
as
term
opposed
in the
to
industry.
A human being with a problem.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not every publisher obviously uses this. It's not an official term that I've ever seen publicly used, but it's on certain insider trade discussions and on insider presentations that we've seen. You classify people as minnows, dolphins, and whales. And whales, they're the people that are spending thousands of dollars or hundreds or thousands of dollars per month on your game. And they're not doing it just because they really, really, really want to and they have tons of disposable income. They're doing it more often than not, in our experience and in my opinion, because they're addicted. Yeah. And you're not treating those people like, "Ooh, that's a problem. We need to figure out better ways to revenue,
Human brains
to monetize."
Easily manipulated.
Yeah, and you're not even giving them the dignity of saying that they're high-income spenders. No, they're a whale. They're an animal that you're manipulating and abusing.
They're big game.
Mm-hmm. You're on safari. And you're out to hunt down those people are the ones you want.
Yeah, we're not here for the dolphins. We want the whales.
Oh, the dolphins are great. They'll spend a bit of money. The heck with the minnows, the whales. We need to focus our game on them. That's disgusting.
Yeah, no, it's Like, it is pretty creepy. Yeah, and creepy is the word that I would use to describe it. I've seen some people say that I'm being thin-skinned when I say that loot boxes are very creepy. But I think that's this is like a video game that is already like the most immersive and easily accessible form of entertainment for a lot of people and stuff. But this like video game, it is a trap. Like almost all of its systems are designed to get you caught in that compulsion loop subtly so that you don't notice it until, suddenly you've spent $250 and you're like, whoa, what the fuck?
Yeah, so we've talked to a lot of people, everybody from lawyers and political people and a doctor who contacted us recently. Okay. And it's down to kids. And a couple of them have been like, hey, listen, I saw you guys featured either in Polygon or a different article. And I play insert game here that has a loot box. And several people, one of them was this doctor, and he's like, you know what, I decided to just look at my credit card statement, because he's a doctor, obviously he's not a guy that's not making, or he's making a good deal of change, and he's like, I was deeply uncomfortable with the amount of money I suddenly found out that I was spending on this game, and I'm just calling or emailing to let you guys know that I support you, and they backed us and sent us some supportive money through Patreon, which is critical to us building a 501c4, but he was like, yeah, I didn't think that this was a real issue, and then I looked at my credit card statement. So this isn't just a kid's issue. This isn't just a people, quote-unquote, with weak will, or like you're being a snowflake on this. It's creepy. It really is creepy, and it's unsettling. And the other thing, if people are trying to kind of defend these practices, what was going on? What do you think the gaming industry was up to? Or when I say gaming now, I'm back to video games. What do you think video games were doing prior to the advent of loot boxes circa, I think it was 2007? The very first time we ever saw a loot box with random chance and cash inputs. I think it was in a FIFA title. It was in a sports title.
It was.
What do you think?
It was Mr. Andrew Wilson, who at the time was in charge of EA Sports, I believe.
Yep. That sounds correct.
And now he's in charge of EA.
The whole shooting match. And what do you think games were doing prior to that? Do you think that these game companies were all making a product and going out of business? No, they were making a lot of money. They were a very successful industry that was making some of the most enjoyable content that any of us have seen. And I'll go back, and I love to still play some nostalgia games from that time because they're quality products with great story or great player experiences. We didn't need loot boxes. There's only one group of people that need loot boxes, and it's people that are making the money off of them from digitally unfair practices. It's not gamers. We've been enjoying great games far before loot boxes, and I'm sure we'll be enjoying great content long after loot boxes are gone.
Yeah. No, it's, and kind of you see a lot of, I think of sort of like EA's, it's interesting how the whole loot box system, like I was going to mention EA's investor call talks and stuff, but it's kind of interesting how this whole loot box situation has trained people's eyes on Wall Street now, because a lot of, stock analysts were getting so excited, like the EA announced that they were bringing back the loot box stuff. I believe EA stock soared after the announcement, and it's like suddenly people are starting to notice outside of gaming, like, all these people who get excited are also the same people who would profit off of manipulation and stuff. And then I think of like the investor calls and just like how corporate and cynical it all is, and people now are starting to listen in on some of EA's some of their conference calls with their different investors and stuff like that, like just listening in for any news on the future of their games. I believe the new Battlefield game was announced because via an investor call that people just listened in on. Like, that's so cold and cynical.
It is, and on a certain level, I have to, because I come from a political and a corporate background. Like, I understand the purpose of your company is to make as much money as possible and to give good returns to your shareholders. But I think the best way to do that, and we had a great track record of games companies that have done this well, is by making a good product and selling people something that they want to buy, not tricking them into giving you money. Gamers are a lot smarter and a lot more nuanced than I think some of these companies are giving them credit for, and they're just out to try to bilk and get people to buy into these products that are mentally manipulative, when we have so many great examples of games companies and products that sold tens and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of revenue just by being great games that people wanted to buy, or subscription services that people wanted to be engaged in. Like, what do you think World of Warcraft was doing for the over a decade that it was going on? They weren't using loot boxes, as far as I ever experienced them. They were just making a great piece of content that people wanted to get together around and enjoy.
Or, funny enough, for a more recent example, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, which sold a lot of money, and then the remaster, which has loot boxes in it. And now if you look on Steam charts, the original Modern Warfare release has a higher player count than the fucking remaster.
It's sad on many levels. It's hilarious, but it's also sad. When I loved COD 4. Big fan. And I get the fact that it kicked off a lot of good and a lot of also negative trends in the industry. Yeah. And people used to laugh at me. Maybe I'm a little basic, but I actually enjoyed the story that was originally being laid out in the Modern Warfare series. Like, I kind of dig the story that was just being presented from a single player experience. And the fact that they had to go back and they're remastering it, I was like, awesome, that's great. I will probably pay more money and buy that game again for shinier graphics and more polished experience. And then I found out they were tossing loot boxes into it. I was like, never mind. All right. Yeah. Like, the quantity of games that we've discussed already that I personally have not purchased or just got an early access copy or a pass or played a friend's copy of just to be able to more articulately talk about them. They've missed out on a lot of money from me. And I know when you're looking at EA's earnings reports, just EA, they are losing out on a lot of money from a lot of people because of these practices.
Modern Warfare, you did not miss out on a lot with that remaster.
That's a shame.
Not just the loot box aspect, which broke a lot of the silhouette of Call of Duty 4 when you see people running around with weed camo and rainbow outfits, but also just as a PC game, there is no excuse why it's so badly optimized, because even as a remaster, it doesn't look very good.
That's something I've also never understood, and maybe this is again because I'm an outsider from the industry. When you re-release something, I believe you're supposed to fix all the bad things with it, or the things that don't work. You're not just shoving a thing out the door and putting a little bit of polish on it. You're supposed to fix all the broken and bad stuff, not add new garbage to your product. Yeah. And I don't. That's the other unique thing about this industry, and it makes our job when we're doing advocacy a lot easier and a lot more of a unique experience, because no other industry practices the kind of practices that the bad actors in this industry practice. Like, no car company is going to look at their car that has, I don't know, just name a problem, a safety problem, a design problem, and go, right, we're going to re-release the car. And I know everybody hated the design of it, but we're going to stick with that, but we're just going to offer it in new colors now, and I bet that'll work. Like, nobody does that. When a car doesn't sell, or a car, everybody's like, oh, that car's butt ugly, they don't make that car anymore. They go and make a new one that's better, or they change the body styling so the car isn't butt ugly anymore. Nobody else does this, and it's absurd, and I really think that if we all work together as gaming community members, we can make real change and finally force these folks, these bad actors, to be like, you know what? It's not worth it. We're getting our teeth kicked in the market. This regulatory thing, it's not worth it. We should just be honest and fair and respect our player base.
Well, Chris Lee on his YouTube channel, he actually mentioned how interesting it was that, well, obviously the Battlefront 2 stuff is awful and stuff like that, but it wasn't, and the game companies were saying, oh, don't worry about it, it'll blow over. And he said it wasn't until the bills started to get written out and starting to pass around, when suddenly you had lobbyists from the different publishers running up and down the halls of Congress, like trying to stop politicians and talk to them about, no, this is what it's like. It's not gambling. And he said it's very funny to see how panicked it all looks because, they're about to, their scheme is up.
You just, again, that's the thing that I don't understand is when somebody's engaged in a bad faith practice, and you don't see just Republicans, Democrats advocating for these bills. We had a Republican introduced bill in Indiana. We have Republicans in other states that we're already working and talking to get to introduce bills. You've got Democratic leaders in Washington State, D.C. and the Senate level, and out in Hawaii with Chris Lee, that are all getting the fact that this is gambling and we should probably regulate it that way. And we're happy to see that when you just lay out the facts for people, they will go, that looks a lot like gambling. Are you sure they're not regulated like casinos? And we're like, no, they're not. This product is enjoyed by children of all ages in your living room.
In fact, the targeted demographic is 10 and up.
Yeah. They're not being accidental with who they're selling this to.
Yeah, no, it's not.
And we think that if you started to regulate these products and tell them, listen, these need to be regulated like gambling, so you need to either have a casino or follow the other regulatory requirements, ideally that would incentivize the industry to just behave better, or the bad actors that just behave better. And I also just want to be quickly clear, I don't want to try to paint the entire industry of game developers and sellers and publishers with a broad brush and say everybody's doing bad things. There are a lot of good actors out there. There are a lot of studios of all sizes that respect their player base, that do a lot of good work. We've talked about Titanfall 2. We've talked about a couple of other titles that are doing good jobs and just being digitally fair. And it's only the advocates and the lobbyists for certain companies that are getting freaked out and having a problem with this regulation. It's not all of them.
Yeah. It's, yeah, but are there specific places that people can go, to follow you best, get in touch with you guys and stuff? Obviously you have a Twitter, like Facebook, a special website.
So so first of all, would appreciate everybody's support. We're trying to build right now a 501c4 political advocacy organization. That's a very technical political and tax term to just build an organization that can do political advocacy on a higher level than we're doing right now. And if anybody can support us, you can find all of our information through our website, www.digitalfairness.org. And we are a not-for-profit, all-volunteer organization. We're currently filing to have our nonprofit corporation status recognized on a tax level, but this money doesn't go to me. This doesn't go to any of our other team members. This is all to pay for the services we receive and for the work that needs to be done to run everything and do the advocacy that we're trying to do. So you can follow us there. We also have a fantastic listserv that covers all of our weekly newsletters and updates, and you can find also our Patreon and our direct donation page through our website, like I said, digitalfairness.org. Or we're also on Twitter, which is, I guess, where some of our more spicy memes come from, and we like to engage in a little bit more fun and kind of down, dirty knuckle play, which is great.
Yeah, you guys retweet a lot of our stuff that's like, ooh.
Yeah, there are a lot of really great burns out there that every time either me or anybody from our comms group sits down, it's like, I wish we came up with that. I wish we were that snarky and that fun. But yeah, so folks that want to support us and follow us in that way, we appreciate every coin, every dollar that people contribute. This is an all-volunteer group, and we want to help mobilize the gaming community, and I think that Battlefront 2 has showed us, it has showed the community, and it showed leaders, and especially the industry, that together we're not going to put up with abusive practices anymore. We're not going to put up with... We've all, I think, really reached a tipping point. And now is the time to get active, to retweet, to contribute, to come, and we're going to be soon having digital town halls. We're going to be having days at your capital, helping folks connect them with their representative. They'll have a script. Call your local representative, tell them to support a bill in your state. we are building a full national and state-focused advocacy and political engagement platform.
Yeah.
It's not cheap or free to do that. We've all made a lot of personal commitments to get this platform up and running, so every contribution helps, but if folks can't contribute financially, that's fine. We understand that. But please spread the message.
Yeah,
Let people know that you're tired of it, and you've been doing a fantastic job of that as well. So thank you for keeping this discussion in the public forum.
Yeah, the Battlefront 2, the only reason it's in the government's eye now is because a lot of people were actually reaching out to their local senators and, state representatives and stuff. Famously, there was someone who, I forgot what, she was the receptionist or whatever, and she tweeted for some mayor, I think, and she tweeted out a tweet that was like, it went semi-viral, and it was basically like, I have no clue about any of this, but we're getting so many calls about a Star Wars game that has casinos in it. Like,
I actually think that was out of Chicago.
It was?
Okay. Yeah, I believe so. I could be wrong. But yeah, they were like, listen, we don't really get your issue, but clearly everybody's pissed. We're going to look into it. We don't know why you're pissed. And what we're trying to do is
disorganized chaos. I mean, with you guys, digital fairness and stuff, because you can now coordinate and rally people to have like precision strikes and be able to give specifics on what the issue are. Educate some of the senators, mayors, whoever.
We want to be able to funnel and channel the very exciting and very strong energy that's activated in our community. The energy of gamers, we're all gamers ourselves. In digital fairness, we got together because we're tired of this issue and we want to work together with everyone to say, you know what, the line is here, you've crossed it, it needs to be pushed back. And when we explain just the facts to leaders, Republicans, Democrats, independents, they all get it. Everybody wants to do this, and we need people's help to get this campaign rolling. And the exciting thing, I genuinely believe that a year or 2 or 3 from now, this is not going to be the next debate about gun control. This is not going to be the next debate about healthcare. This is an issue that a lot of folks of all political stripes agree on. And when we work together, we're going to make real change. And it's going to benefit all of us in the community.
Well said, man.
Well, thank you very much for having me on and continuing to keep your audience informed. And for your spicy memes as well. I will always thank and be grateful for spicy memes.
Yeah, man. Anything else to add to the subject?
No, that's about it from our end. And like I said, the folks that want to get engaged, please join us at www.digitalfairness.org.
All respected links will be in the description. Everything, your Patreon and Twitter.
Wonderful.
And it all. Yeah, man.
And continue to follow Late Night Gaming for some of the absolute best commentary and memes, both on Halo and for your other content. I'm always appreciative of that as well.
Thank you, man.
All right. Well, thanks so much.